Okay, so I'm speaking to Cindy Speaker, who's the co-director, co-producer, and executive producer on Well of Dreams, a wonderful documentary that's been entered into our film festival, Nice International Film Festival, and has picked up nominations. So, Cindy Speaker, welcome to the our quick interview chat that we're going to have. Really appreciate you. Really appreciate you giving me your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Now, I know you touched upon this briefly a moment ago, but yeah, you've actually got your own production company, I think, Speaker Films, and this is your first production, I think, isn't it?
It is. Yes, it really is, and it was driven by the story and the person that we did the film on, Miss Ann O'Kilo.
Yes.
So we really fell in love with her and her story, which was the impetus for creating this and producing this film.
And so, just to clarify, with Anne, who the way I see it, forgive me for saying this. This is how my point of view is. Empowerment is kind of the word I'm thinking of when I watch this film.
Yes.
And was it purely a case of you came across Anne, and I'd love to know how you came across her, and because of your experience meeting her and the story she had to tell, you decided to create your production company on the back of that. Is that kind of how it worked?
It really is. I'll tell you how it happened. Is a friend of mine, his name's Warren Calloway, who was in the film. He had been mentoring her. She was actually working on a master's degree in the hometown that I live in.
Yeah.
And he said, he came to our Bible study group and he said, we want to raise some money. We want to try and have a well put in her village back in Kenya. She's here in America working on a film degree. He gets to know her and her family. She comes from a village where they have no water.
Yes.
Huge issues. So our church group got involved in trying to raise money for the well. I said, listen, we have a studio here and, part of my business. Why don't you bring her into the studio? We'll do some video and we'll get it and push it out through social media, see if we can raise money. The day I brought her into the studio, I had never met her. And when she told her story on camera, honestly, I was just blown away by it. I know that that there are a lot of stories of people similar to Anne, but I hadn't met anyone like that before. And when I heard about the type of abuse she'd suffered, the difficulties in walking 8 miles a day to get water for her family, all the difficulties in trying to stay in school when all the odds were against her, I was just blown away. And at some point down the road, after the money was raised for the well, I said to her, Anne, I just believe so much in what you're doing. I think that if we did a documentary film, I think we could give more visibility to your story to hopefully give you a higher profile that will empower you to do your work. And so that was really the journey that we were on. I had a small company, and I had some young filmmakers, and we basically kind of gathered around Anne and went to Africa to shoot the film.
And I mean, how did that? I mean, you explained it beautifully, but I guess the truth is that you must have jumped through a hell of a lot of hurdles to get this film made. Not least of which, of course, you've got to raise the finance to get over there, to make the film, to put the production team together. So it must have been a really tough experience. I mean, how did you do all that? How did you generate the amount of money you needed to actually make the film? And how did it all come together? And how long did it take?
Well, yeah, honestly, it was interesting how it happened. The first obstacle was we fully expected to make the film primarily in the United States because she was a student here. But she went back when they were having the commissioning of the well, Anne and several men from our church went to Kenya to her small village to commission the well. And when they tried to return, I don't know if it were her visa, it was some kind of legality like that. She was denied re-entry into the United States, and it was shocking to all of us. We were just like, are you kidding me? That we couldn't believe it. And so actually there's a lot of social media out there because we really embarked on a social media campaign to try to appeal to the embassy to allow her re-entry to the United States. We didn't know, we found out later, and it kind of comes to light in the film, we found out later that there were some extenuating circumstances that we were unaware of. So to make a long story short, she had to stay in Kenya, and we were already so committed to this story that we did begin to raise funds for the film. We have some people that were very generous in getting on board with that project, and the funds were raised, and our crew went to Africa. And honestly, we were all never expecting that we would go to Africa to shoot the film. My youngest one on the team, Dan Franz, was only 15 years old.
No.
He's the one that did the sizzle reel, which actually, with some of his other productions, he's just unbelievably talented. He ended up being a U.S. presidential scholar in the arts. He did our sizzle reel because of his work. The film played in the Smithsonian for several weeks. Back a few years ago. So it's kind of like Sonny Izon, who I've talked about. He was our mentor and consulting producer. We couldn't have done the film without Sonny. He walked us through. He mentored us through. He believed in the film, and he always called the film the little film that could. And so he really guided us through that process. As you know, Sonny is Noel Izon, a seasoned producer, has worked for many years as a filmmaker, and he took us on this journey, mentored us through the entire process.
I love him. He's such a cool dude. And
he's great.
He has this real laid back way about him. I'm sure he's very driven, but he's just got a quiet, magnetic sort of drive. He's just a really cool guy, and I really do like him a lot. It's amazing you mentioned the Smithsonian, because they had a filming competition in Berlin, I think it was. I'm trying desperately to think of the name of the film. And after I finish the call, I'll go and look it up. But I had to deal with them. They were fantastic people. They actually came over to Germany, the director and some representatives from the Smithsonian. And yeah, they're a lovely bunch of people. Yeah, lovely people.
Yeah.
Lovely people to speak to work with. So when you got there, is it possible to explain what you were expecting and what you actually came across? Was it completely unexpected, or how you imagined it went to actually when you got there filming?
Yeah. Well, Steve, the first thing I did in the airport in Kenya was almost just ruined our whole chance, because, again, being a novice, I told the boys, the young filmmakers that were our crew, I said, guys, we're going to reunite with Anne. I said, I want you to capture this as the team reunites with Anne. I want you to capture it on film. We're in the airport. They fire up the cameras and the lights, and people in the airport gather around us and quickly begin a pursuit to try to take our equipment. And honestly,
what you mean, steal the equipment? You mean steal the equipment?
They basically said, you can't have it here. You're going to have to leave it with us, and you can pick it up tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
And Anne herself worked through that, and she said, Cindy, if they would have taken the equipment, you would have never seen it again. It would have stopped everything.
Yeah, that's right.
But when we went, Anne, who is really a community organizer, community mobilizer, she had mobilized her community and really surrounding communities. We did a number of things while we were there, and Anne really orchestrated it, because we went to several villages. We had sessions. We had raised money for sanitary napkins for the girls. Hearing that story from Anne, where young girls are forced to miss a week of school every month because they don't have basic requirements that we have here in America. So we raised money for that. And when Anne distributed those in the various villages, it was like Christmas morning. It was phenomenal. And you see that all in the film. Yeah. We also did some distributions of soccer balls and things like that. But Anne she really orchestrated the shoot, because she kind of in conjunction with our team, with myself and our team, we kind of knew what we wanted to shoot. We wanted to capture the difference that the well made. But what happened is we found a whole backstory that we didn't know existed, and that's all played out in the film. And that was almost a bigger story in the end, and really goes back to what you said in the beginning, Steve, the empowerment, the value of education and empowerment, and the way that women are so suppressed there. And what we found is we met people in the various villages. All the men spoke English. Almost none of the women did, because they don't have the opportunity to be educated.
Yeah, of course.
So they become almost like a piece of property. And I think Anne became a hero in that whole area. They called her the queen because she had fought through and not only been the first girl in her village to graduate from high school, but she went on to work with someone to write a grant, get to America, get not only a bachelor's degree, but a master's degree, and then have a driving passion to go back to her people, make a difference, and motivate and inspire young women to get their education so that they are not left to be nothing more than a piece of property to men.
And when you started this this journey, not just with making this film, but this is, I get it's the driving force behind Speaker Films. Did you ever envisage the emotional connection with this? And what I mean by that is, I know you filmmakers, by the very nature, try and stay disjointed from it, just try and stay unaffected because you don't want it affecting you. I understand it, but how do you stop? How can you not be affected by this?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I remember going to to see a documentary, and there was a whole discussion with the directors and after the film, and they talked about how important it is to try to stay neutral when you're making a film.
Yeah.
And there was a great conversation that ensued, and what came out of that in my mind was we all bring things to the table that really pretty much prevent us from being completely neutral in as filmmakers, and I think it's very difficult. I believe that I succumb to kind of getting a love of Anne, a love of that story, and you develop certain biases along the way as a filmmaker. I don't see how you can avoid that. I really don't. So I think that to me, that goes with the territory. We fell in love with our subject, and we were so passionate about telling her story and empowering her. I don't know if that is bias, but I guess it is.
Do you know what, Cindy? I think that's just good human nature. And you know, and this is something you just touched on there, because as you're saying it, I'm kind of thinking there's subjects where it'd be very difficult to not be affected by, and this is one of those things. And you know, and a decent human being would have some kind of connection to that, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, look, I personally think that humans in general are morally good people. Morally good is, I suppose, what I'm saying. And you know, I know we see these terrible things happening all the time, you know, all over the world. But in general, I'd like to believe that people are in general have decent values. And because if they don't, then you know, it's a bit of a tragic world that we're living in. And I don't believe that on the whole that we do. We are bad people. So there's nothing wrong with being connected or affected by these stories. I don't think. I'm sort of waffling on a bit, but you know, you can see what I'm saying, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. I really do.
You know, and what was the hardest part about making this? That it could be something you saw, something you weren't expecting, and what was the best part about making it?
The hardest part about making it was when the story took a very unexpected turn, and it put our heroine in a very it was really difficult. I don't know if I should reveal that whole journey or not. Is that take away from the film? I don't really know.
No,
should I reveal?
Yeah, go on. One, yeah, yeah. Say, because it is on a personal level, and I think, yeah, reveal it. We don't have to reveal all, but just you can just give us the bare bones. But and then of course you can counter that with what was the most positive thing about it.
Here's what happened is when we got over there and some really almost dangerous things began to happen. What we learned through a series of events is that Anne had a daughter.
Right.
And Anne had left her daughter. And we knew nothing about that. So all of a sudden, we were in a predicament. We believed wholeheartedly in Anne, but our concern was, is the audience going to stay on board with this woman who is our heroine when they find out she left her daughter? But as we learned more about that story, Anne taught us, and we really came to understand this, is that she had to help herself first in order to help her child. And because they were unsafe, they were in a terrible, abusive environment. And so she got her daughter into a safe environment, came to America to get her education, and triumphed. And so when she went back and they did not let her return to the United States, I think there was more going on there than we realized, because I think in Anne's mind, although she was not able to verbalize it to us, she was ready to go back and take care of her daughter. So there was a lot of backstory that developed. It took us on kind of an emotional roller coaster, but for me, it taught me things about life that I had never had the privilege of seeing before. I had never seen people that had such a difficult life. We have it, so many times in America. Not everybody has a fairly, easy. It's not an easy life here, but compared to what Anne was dealing with, I'd never seen things like that. And so to triumph through that, come full circle with that story, and get to the end of the film and feel like, wow, I think we've really made something here that communicates a message of inspiration to some of these young girls that we long to help, that we long to inspire, that we long to impact through the telling of Anne's story. So I think that was the highlight, because we felt like we really told her story in an effective way.
And I mean, do you? Thank you for that. Do you worry? The direction. I'm trying not to get political about this, because it's not just what's happening in the US, it's what's happening across the Western world. But do you worry the direction that socially that we are embarking upon? It's because things have changed in the last 5 or 10 years, or the last 5 months, perhaps I should say. But are you concerned by it?
I'm very concerned by it. And the whole issue of social justice is something very important to me. And honestly, it's very concerning. I think that we need, one of the things I'm very happy about, very proud of, is the young men that were involved in the making of the film. Very talented young men, Dan Franz, Chris Mercury. They are both now working in the profession. They are young filmmakers, and they were so impacted that they are telling stories of social injustice, and they are moving along. And I think that we really need more of this, because honestly, it frightens me, the kinds of things that we see today. It frightens me, the injustice. It's very frightening. And I think films are one of the best ways to help educate people, because when you hear a story, when the information comes to you in the form of a story, it has so much more impact than if it's people lecturing to you or making laws. When you hear the stories, you can't help but be impacted.
Oh, so I totally agree with everything you say, and it is. I mean, I'm living in a part of the world, much like you, that I'm not saying it's cosseted, but I know. As well as you do, that I mean, I don't know the first thing about your life, but I do know that your life is a lot, and my life is a lot better. We happen to be in the top 1 percentile of wealth in worldwide wealth. So I know that we bitch and moan about certain things, but I also know that actually, compared to not just her story, but 95% of the world perhaps are living in a terrible, tough environment. And you're right. I think filmmaking, documentary making is a curtain, or a story where the curtain is drawn apart, and you can hopefully see what's really going on.
Yes, I agree.
And there needs to be, and I'm in a fortunate position to see a lot of films, that do highlight these kind of terrible stories that are going on. With this, was there a lot of footage that you took out that could have been in the film? Is there a heck of a lot more that was in there that obviously you would have cut out for running time reasons or to make it fit into a certain length that you wanted to be broadcastable? But was there a lot that you really wish you could have kept in?
There was other footage that obviously we would love to have kept in, but I think that that it was important to cut it out because, as it happens, as you go down that journey, some things become very special to you, but the bigger decision, and Sonny was a part of helping us with that, I think it's better for the film in the end to cut some of that out. But I'm pleased with the end product and what we did choose to keep and what we did choose to let go of.
And how long were you away in total to make this film, Cindy, from start to finish?
We were only in Kenya for 2 weeks.
Oh, really? It was that quick?
Yeah, we were only in Kenya for 2 weeks. Now, I did send a crew back later on because when we went to Kenya, we didn't know about Anne's daughter.
Right.
And we tried to get to her the last day. And it was actually a traffic issue, believe it or not.
Yeah, I can believe it, yeah.
We were unable to get to her, so I did send a crew, and we did interview. I didn't go, actually, but we sent a crew. Anne was there. So there was a follow-up shoot for a couple of days where we did interview the daughter, who was a lovely, lovely young woman. And actually, her name is Valerie. I think she's going to be a world changer. She's a phenomenal young lady.
Well, so she's picked up the drive and ambition from her mother and has expanded on that, do you think?
She really has. And, I talked to Anne. I talked to her a week or so ago, and I talked to her maybe once every month. And she always tells me how well Valerie is doing. But Anne, life is very hard there. And there's times when Anne, she struggles. It's difficult. She carries so much weight. And she invariably will tell me, Valerie is amazing. Valerie encourages me. And I think it's incredible that, the girl's a teenager and she's almost become, the driving force now.
And I sense there could be a sequel here. It must be something I guess you've thought about.
We have thought about it. We really have thought about it. It's a big undertaking, and I think that I probably would not take it on. I would assist, maybe executive produce, but I don't think I would try to take it on the way that I did the first film. I'm getting old, Steve.
Cindy, I'm 50. I don't mind saying, which I don't know if that's old. It's only a number.
Yeah, that's right.
It's only a number, and I think, again, it's my personal feeling, I think if you want to do something, who wants to live a life looking back saying, if only I'd done that? I don't.
Right.
Because life is short. Life is short, I think. So, do you have a vision for Speaker Films? I mean, is there a game plan? Is there something you're putting in place? Is the direction that you want to take your future projects?
Well, we're committed to social injustices, and I do a lot of work with attorneys, and one of the things that we're talking about right now is kind of injustice, what I perceive as leaning towards injustice in the United States. And that is the move towards the erosion of the Seventh Amendment and the right to a jury trial. And what I see is, right now, I have a kind of a passion to help educate my own countrymen here in America to understand that there are corporate entities and there are government entities that are trying to erode our rights. And that's something that right now I am working towards a film in that area.
Oh, right. So is that the next project that you're working on now? I mean, if you can't say anything about it, don't worry. I don't want to put you on the spot, but that's the project you're looking at the moment.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and when do you
That's
see?
the plan.
When do you think that will be completed?
I think it'll be a year.
What, from now?
A year from now, yeah.
Cindy, I've just realised, apologies for this, I really got straight into talking about where you are now in terms of your production company. But what I failed to ask you, which is very remiss of me, and I normally do, is because I was so excited to talk to you about this film, is where did you come from before this?
Well, it's interesting. I always had a love of film, and I have a graduate degree in TV and film, but I came out of grad school, wanted to get a job as a producer, was unable to get anything other than a entry-level position because of my lack of experience. So I set myself on just getting a good job, and I ended up with a very good job in the legal industry.
Right.
So that took me into the legal industry, and what's been great is that I work with personal injury attorneys. They're a passionate group of people that are they get very upset about injustices. And it's a great fit for what I do, not only as a marketing consultant to lawyers, but as a filmmaker. So there's actually a nice overlap because I have lawyers that are very committed to that. I actually did a Facebook Live broadcast yesterday with one of my attorneys, and we were talking about the project, and he said that he is a constitutional nerd, and he would love to get involved in this project regarding the Seventh Amendment.
And this is a bit of a cheeky question, this, but I thought I'd just throw this in. If I suddenly said to you, here's $20 million, it's a figure I've just plucked from the air, you can go and make 1 or 2 films that you dream of making. Here's the money to do it, a huge amount of money. What would you do with the money? What would you make?
Wow. That's a really tough question, Steve.
Sorry.
That's a really tough question, because I think if money was not an obstacle, then I don't think it would be about the Seventh Amendment. I think I would go back to the kind of film that we made with Well of Dreams that dealt with women's issues and more direct social injustices.
And I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? You've got to... You want to make the films that you truly want to make, of course, like Well of Dreams. But it's always... I know filmmakers have got to get their money back. I get that, of course, and it's extremely important. You've got to cover the cost. But I suppose the problem is, and I know this, I'm talking to lots of filmmakers, you're spinning plates. You're trying to get the money in whilst making the film. But I can also hear the passion in the way you explain things in your voice, which is a lovely thing to hear. So I know it's I won't say desperately important. That's not the right word, perhaps I'm looking for. But you are. It's so important for you to get these films out there. Oh, do you wish you had done this 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, or do you think it just happened that the time was right when you started to actually become serious about doing your own thing?
No, I definitely wish I had done it earlier, because I think it would have allowed me to tell more stories. I do wish. Here's when I look back, honestly, Steve, making Well of Dreams was the greatest thrill of my life. And, it's interesting, my mother, and I told you that my mother is ill, and it's one of the reasons I can't come to Nice, although I would love to. Oh, but, she when I went there and she referred to me as a humanitarian, it meant so much to me, because, I like that description. I want to be humanitarian. I want to make a difference in people's lives in whatever way I can, and I think film is a vehicle for doing that.
Do you know what? That is a perfect way to end this interview.